Hey, Tamara Tamu here, bringing you another episode of Unleashed Alchemy. So, in this episode, we're going to talk about comparison and what that has to do with spirituality. I don't see the two talked about at all in the same sentence or in the same realm, together, but we need to address it. So, before we get into talking about comparison and what that has to do with your spirituality, I want to invite you to check out all the ways that I support you on your spiritual odyssey. So the Magic School is a monthly membership that is always open for you to enroll in, to gain even more spiritual wisdom, to gain even more support, to move you through, to uncover your spiritual gifts, to move you through every single aspect of your life so that you can see enchantments. All right. So that manifestation is not just a one-off thing, manifesting here and there. No, it's an everyday thing. All right. You start to see overflow every single day of your life in every single aspect. All right. Also, I provide one-on-one sessions through whether they're 60-minute sessions or the 90-day package, all right, where in either the 60-minute session, 90-day session, you are going to come away from our sessions feeling more confident in your spiritual science. You are going to feel more confident in the energetics that you are working with in your life, and you're going to know how to apply that to your everyday life, all right, so that you can live the soul-fulfilled life that you were put here to live. All right, I also offer complimentary support to you. Check out the links for all of those in the description box of the video. Oh, and I want to remind you that my newest book, Tales of a Money Maven, How Religious and Other Programming Has Fucked Up Your Money, it is now available in paperback on Amazon. I'm excited for that offering. I'm excited to tell you about it. So check it out. All right, let's get into the episode. So comparison becomes an irrelevant notion when you are viewing your life through the lens of source, spirit, and the universe. However you want to term that, choose one, okay? Or choose all of them like I just did, okay? So this is what being in the world but not of it. That's what that means. That is what I have learned that to mean. So as your oneness with infinite intelligence becomes more solid, as you begin to exude that in your being, in your identity, in your life, you start to own that program. That comparison is a programmed notion, and it has nothing to do with you. So I'm going to give you this example that is coming up for me. I wasn't going to even address it, but it keeps coming up. So the example that I want to use is when I had my apparel business, I did nothing but, well, I shouldn't say it like that, but I will say I did a lot of comparing the way that I was going about my business, the way that my clothes looked, the way that I was my marketing, advertising, all of that. I was comparing it heavily to what was already in the market because I was still functioning from a program view that said, okay, well, this is how other people are doing it, so you need to follow that. This is how the experts are telling you that you need to set up your strategy to set up your systems. So I need to do that. So you should do that. So that's what I did. Not understanding that that was coming from a programmed lens. So where does programming come from? Where does comparison come from? And when do we start to get that program message that comparison is a part of how we live? Well, it starts right when we go to school. It starts at preschool. If you remember all of those different charts with everybody's name on it, every student in the class, and everybody got stars by their name, compared to how they performed in class, compared to how their behavior. You would see someone on Monday got 2 stars while everybody else got 7. Or on Wednesday, you have a person that only got 3 stars, everybody else got 5 and 6. You get the idea. Then this carries on into, it actually carries on into our jobs, into the corporate environment. The same type of comparison still exists. All right. We see it in religious spaces. I can give you an example of, so during my time in the religious cult that I was brought up in, comparisons were made heavy during that time in the service, that segment in the service that was called tithes and offering. Anyone who gave what was considered to be a big amount, that was compared to people whose amounts were deemed to be not as significant. So there were comparisons made even in the amounts and the people that gave those certain amounts. There were even comparisons made between who gave the most versus who gave the least. So we have all these different programmed pockets that teach us that comparison is just part of living, when that is a lie. So here's the deal. Your spiritual odyssey is meant to take you beyond the norm, beyond what programming says, beyond the comparison, which is why the spiritual odyssey can feel lonely. Doesn't mean that it is, it can feel that way. Because here you are wanting to express a certain power, express your God power, express your goddess power with no comparison. You want to be able to express your business in a certain way. But because of all of these, and I'm using business as an example, but because of all of these program views that lead us to comparison, you know that your business, that you're sitting on this gold mine, but yet perhaps you may not be seeing the results because you're allowing that comparison projection to influence your actions. So I'm going to repeat this. Your spiritual odyssey is meant to take you beyond the norm. Beyond the norm in what? Well, I just used the example of business. So what is normal, what is programmed, what leads you to comparison says, well, here's the strategy for business that all the experts say that you need to view, that you need to incorporate in your business. When your soul is saying, well, no, we're going to create our own. It would be the same as you creating your own Bible. Some of you may not like that, but that's just what it is, okay? So instead of you looking at a strategy that is already created, you could be saying, well, I just feel like I want to create my own. Yes, the experts are saying this, but I feel this. And yet, programming is saying, well, we always hear this phrase in business. Don't create a new thing, or don't reinvent the wheel, is what we often hear in business. Well, that could be good advice or practical advice for someone. But what if your soul and your heart is saying, well, that's not the wheel that feels right for me. That is not the wheel that feels aligned for me. what feels aligned for me looks like this. But because of that program view, we're comparing what other people are doing, and we're saying, well, maybe I should try that because that's what everyone is doing in my industry. Or maybe I should try that because this person is an expert in what I want to do. Maybe I should listen to them. Maybe they're right. So you've got this back and forth happening because of the program view, the programmed idea of comparison. So we can use the example in addition to money, or an example to business, we can use the example of money. Money involving conversations about how to get it changes for you because you're going outside of the norm. Well, what is outside of the norm? To get money. First of all, getting money, knowing that you don't have to get money, that money flows to you, that is outside of the norm. Getting money as far as a job, if you're now saying, well, yeah, that's what people have done before, but I know that my soul aligned life is taking me beyond the constructs of a job. So that is going outside of the norm. So you can no longer compare yourself with someone who has a job and how much money they make in their job, because your spiritual odyssey is taking you beyond the norm. Here's a very interesting one. Another example that I want to share with you is if you're a parent, how you parent, how people parent. It was done a certain way in your community, but now you are choosing to parent differently because your lens has expanded. Maybe there was a certain way in your community that kids who did something wrong, maybe there was a certain way in your community that the kids were disciplined, but now through the lens of spirit, now you're saying, wait a minute, there's another expanded way to discipline that I'm going to implement with my child. That is going beyond the norm. So now you can no longer compare your parenting with another. Are you getting this? With this, when we look at comparison and we integrate it into our spiritual assignment, our spiritual odysseys, we start to understand that there are people who are in a box. They're in a box. And they can get out of it by just simply pushing the walls down and pushing them down and just allowing them to fall. Period. So when you notice that people are in a box, again, it's not to judge them. But when you are living in a way that is going beyond the norm, just by your presence, what will happen is that it will cause a shift in that person, or it will cause them to feel some type of resistance, and they, may limit their communication with you. Fine, because your conversation is not going to be the same anymore. So they will, again, going back to the first part, they will push down the walls by watching how you have functioned in your expansion. So now you don't have to compare yourself to anyone. And you certainly don't have to compare yourself to someone who is bound or in a box and they don't even know that they can just simply push the walls down. All right. So I wanted to share that with you and bring the two together, bring the comparison and how that is related to our spiritual odyssey. We have to be willing, we have to understand what having that spiritual odyssey, or being on that spiritual odyssey and being focused on what that means. Part of it is meant to take you beyond the norm. How can you stay the same? By being reacquainted with your cosmic expansive self. You can't stay the same. Your conversation can't stay the same. Your lens is not going to be the same. You are not in a box. You are outside of any border. There aren't any borders, so there are no comparisons. That's what a comparison is. A comparison is a border. A comparison is a box, which no longer applies to you. So take that, think about that. Let me know your takeaways. Don't forget about all of my offerings will be in the description link of this video. All right. Until next time, cheers.